Hello, hello friends. Can you hear me? I am Abhay Kumar, and once again I am with you with Facebook Live. And today we have got a very distinguished, very important guest. Professor Ram Punyani needs no introduction. He is one of the leading public intellectuals in India. He has been human rights activist, a great champion of secularism, pluralism, and he has opposed and he has a struggle against communal politics. Friends, you know that what has happened in recent past has posed a big and serious challenge to secularism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has gone to Ayodhya and he has worshipped and he has done Bhumi Pujan for the construction of Ram temple. The trust was already there to look into the matter and to build the temple, but the involvement of Prime Minister and state machinery has really angered and has really raised several issues before secular India. Indian secularism, or for that matter, any secularism, says that a state and religion must be separated. But once again, that wall has been broken by the Hindutva forces. So now today we are going to be joined by Professor Ram Punyani. He has been writing on secularism, communalism, and contemporary politics for long time. And I think we will be asking questions and we will be requesting him to educate us and give us insight. And as Professor Musul Hassan wrote a book some time back, Will India Survive? Similarly, we will pose the same questions to a great fighter for communal harmony, Professor Ram Punyani. Will secular India survive? Welcome to Facebook Live, sir, Professor Ram Punyani.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir, I want to give a brief introductions about yourself. There may be a few people who may not be knowing about you, particularly young generation. Ram Punyani is the chairperson of Center for Studies of Society and Secularism. He is human rights activist. He has been working for secularism and pluralism. He has always opposed communalism and fundamentalism. And I think he has also been associated with one forum known as All India Secular Forum. In 2006 and 7, he was awarded National Gandhi Award for Integration and National Communal Harmony Award. His books, he has written a lot on communalism, on secularism, on partition, on various issues, terrorism, on caste, and his column, we all read it. I personally read Professor Punyani's column in two places, Countercurrent and Siyasat Hyderabad, which is a leading Urdu newspaper. You have seen his article in Economic and Political Weekly, also in a Scroll, Indian Express. So we do not need any further elaboration on who is Professor Punyani. But I would like to begin this conversation by asking about Professor Punyani's early life. We will definitely ask him the questions about the contemporary issues and his work, but I will start asking about his life, his childhood. I don't know, many people don't know, and as we know that he was born 2 years before independence, or you could say partition, and not many people know that he is a trained doctor. He has been associated with IIT Bombay for 27 years, and then he left the job in 2004. I think after Gujarat riots, we should also be asking questions about Gujarat riots. Did that play a big role in a big shift in his thinking and in his career? But sir, I would like to ask for our viewers, for our friends, to tell us about your early life. Who were your parents? Where did you do your schooling? Did you study hard? And would you consider yourself as a studious student, or like many of us, you run away from school, something like that? And who were influences on you, sir? Now over to you, Dr.
Yeah.
Ram Punyani.
Yeah, to be very brief, there is nothing very significant about my childhood. I was born in a part of Punjab which is now in Pakistan, in district Jhang. So my family migrated to a place called Nagpur in Maharashtra in 1947-48. So my whole schooling was in Nagpur. I did my up to MD in Nagpur. My family had lot of problems, financial problems at that time, but gradually I think it was not too bad also, not too luxurious also. But from my childhood, my first interest was literature, and I was deeply into Hindi literature along with my studies. Of course, today my Hindi is not good. That is another matter. But Hindi was my first
But sir, we
passion.
read your Hindi article,
Then
sir. We
gradually,
read your Hindi article. We read your Hindi
okay,
article
okay,
very
thank you.
regularly. I get your mail
From
every day
yeah,
in the morning.
okay, thanks. So then I gradually went into study of religions. That was the second thing, and then from there I gradually straight away came to the condition of the nation. And in my childhood, there was a great influence of people like Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Ambedkar, and all that. They were very important to me. And I used to spend a lot of my extra time. As you said, studious student, I was not too studious, but not bad also. I was okay. I was scraping through properly to be able to go to the next stage of admissions and all that. So that was okay. But on my extra time, I used to spend mainly in reading, and this reading made me very committed to the society around. There were two influences which actually brought me to social thinking so much. One was that the area where I was living, there was poverty all around. And whenever I was going to school, I used to see poor colonies. That shook me. And secondly, while in medical college, when I was studying, where did I my MD and all that, there also in the OPD, outpatient department, I used to see huge number of people who were very poor and etc. So that made me force that I should try to understand the society. And in this process of understanding of society, I went through a lot of literature. No holds barred, no holds barred. Whatever came to my hand regarding Mahatma Gandhi, Karl Marx, Ambedkar, later on, even of course Bhagat Singh's writings were a great inspiration, and even later on anarcho-syndicalists. I did not make a boundary that I belong to such a such this thing, and whatever good I. So basically, after all this, I came to basic conclusion that number one, democracy is the most valuable principle of modern society. Number two, that society can change from a formal democracy to substantive democracy. Substantive democracy, when I mean in which liberty, equality, for fraternity, they are not formal. They are not formal. They are not just on paper, but they're real. When I mean equality by that, then it means economic equality, caste equality. Of course, there should not be a caste. Gender equality, class equality. Classes should also be abolished. Caste should also be abolished over a period of time. So I came to understand that democracy is the foundation for social change. And initially, so I associated with the trade union movement along. So there were two tracks. One was my study and regular thing, and later on, of course, I landed up in IIT as medical officer, from where I shifted to biomedical engineering as a faculty. That was one track. All my extra time, I was trying to associate myself in understanding the social issues. And the social issue I picked up for a deeper commitment was labor movement. Labor movement was my first major involvement. As I was involved in the labor movement, I observed in Bombay factories were closing down. This automation was coming in. Workers were being retrenched, etc., etc. All when this was happening, there came this 6th December 1992. So even before Gujarat shook me, 6th December 1992 shook me very deeply, and somewhere I felt that it is not just a Hindu-Muslim issue. It struck me because of my intuition or whatever be. I felt that there are two central agenda of Babri demolition. One is that to abolish democracy. Number two, to relegate the human rights of religious minorities, Dalits, workers, and women. So I did not see it just as a Hindu Muslim issue. This whole agenda of communalism, somehow I felt that this has a lot to do with our Dalits, Adivasis, workers, women, along with religious minorities, of course. So this is where was my intellectual journey. And in this intellectual journey, I kept drawing from a lot of friends. I was part of various social groups, and finally, I landed up with a group called Ekta in Bombay. And my very close dear friend, who's no more now, Asghar Ali Engineer, he became my closest and longest association in times to come. Later on, of course, now currently, people like Shabnam Hashmi, Harsh Mandar, Apurvanand, and all these Gawhar Raza. So these are the friends who have with whose association has benefited a lot in development of my own ideas regarding democracy, secularism, pluralism, etc., etc. And I believe all these are related issues. They are not cut off from each other. So this is where I stand today. So from 92, 93, I started studying more about communalism, more about Hindu nationalism, more about RSS. And in 2004, as you pointed out, Gujarat had a second major impact. And after that, I decided to take the retirement from my IIT job so that I can devote more time for understanding and for trying to disseminate the values of secularism. And meanwhile, of course, a lot of travel came along the way, which because of which I took the retirement.
Sir,
So
you
after
talked
retirement, of
about
course,
the demolition. Yes, you talked about the demolition of the Babri Masjid. I was
yeah,
also very, very young, and I could recall I was just sitting around fire in my village. And at that time, people were talking about the demolitions and they were listening to radio. I don't know. That time, I had very little understanding about politics. But
yeah,
sir, things have changed a lot. You read newspapers editorial a day after the demolitions of Babri Masjid, and I did one content analysis on 6th of August, a day after the Bhumi Pujan. I think we have lost our ground. I think I read all Hindi newspapers. I wrote a story, and no Hindi paper even questioned that Babri Masjid issue and Ram Temple issue is not only an issue of Astha, but it is also the issue of justice and rule of the law and secularism. Nobody and the media is propagating that new India is being built up with the constructions of the Ram Temple. Sir, should we feel more sad to see this development, the secular forces?
see, I think you have touched my raw nerve. My raw nerve you have touched in the form that from 1980s, our journey of democracy has been really derailed. And when I say democracy, secularism is an integral part of it. I regard that secularism and democracy are two sides of the same coin. So from 1980s, when you see Ram Temple issue was brought up, firstly it was a surprise to me How can Ram Temple issue be a issue for the national politics? A country where 30% of people are living below poverty line, do not have two times meals, do not have shelter on their head. How can such a country be talking about Ram Temple, building Ram Temple, and then in succession, after Ram Temple came in that love jihad, Gau Hamari Mata Hai, Cow, and Ghar Wapsi, and all these issues related to identity. So the issue of material survival gradually were bypassed, farmer suicide increasing, people's unemployment increasing, and at the same time, uh, people uh, celebrating. And I must say, I don't think all people can celebrate such a temple, because this temple has uh, gone through the stage where I think thousands and thousands people have lost their lives in the violence which followed the whole Ram temple campaign. Many people, many women have become widows, many children have become orphans, and this has been such a painful journey from Babri demolition to the building of Ram temple, that I think this has been, in a way, most damaging attack on our secularism, on our democracy, and on our constitution. More than that, can you believe that those people who are still uh, accused in case of Babri demolition, they are being honored as trustees of this Ram temple? Can you believe that 1949 Ram Lalla idols were put into the mosque, and even those criminals have not been charged? So that is one thing. And as you were talking of media, media is a chapter by itself. Media is a chapter by itself. When we see that when Janata Party was formed 1977-78, Lal Krishna Advani became the Information and Broadcasting Minister. He was from RSS, and he opened the gate of all right wingers into the media. So since that time, media has been playing this role, but that was bit at a lower scale. After 2002, once Mr. Narendra Modi became the Gujarat Chief Minister, he opened the doors of the corporate world for for Gujarat. He gave them practically blank checks, and that is the time when corporates obliged him and they started buying the media. So today, a large section of media which you are referring to is controlled by this corporate sector, who stand to benefit a lot from this whole communal politics. Because basically, as I'll elaborate later, the idea of communal politics is not to glorify the tolerant values of Hinduism. The idea of communalism is not to uphold what Gandhi understood about Hinduism or Ram Rajya. That is not their idea. Their idea is that by using the label of Hinduism, try to bring in the values which were there in the ancient times. Roughly speaking, the values which are given in Manusmriti. So that is their central agenda, and with that, as the rights of workers are deprived. So what is happening? What is the basic difference between democratic values and the values of those times? In democracy, obviously you have some say, but in the ancient times, which most of the fundamentalists glorify. Please note, it is not only RSS and Hindu communalists. Most of the fundamentalists glorify the ancient value. Why? Because that time the workers had zero rights. There was a wonderful division of labor, wonderful division of that the affluent people had all the rights and the poor people had all the duties. So this division of labor they want to bring. There are rights, there are duties, but rights are for affluent and duties are for the down lower sections of society, and that's why the corporate world stood by Modi, bought our media, and on the top of it, then the party called BJP starts IT cell, which employs thousands of youth to spread fake news, to spread hatred against people, to do the trolling and all that. So today, if you are surprised about Hindi newspapers, it is. I agree with you. I agree with you that this media
Sir,
has been degenerated.
Hindi newspapers are read by a
Agree.
large number of
I
people,
agree. I
and
agree.
if we leave that
I
field,
agree.
to Hindutva forces, we are just destroying our own society.
I am with you. I am with you. See, that's what I was saying. The media today is being controlled by a pro-Hindutva corporate ownership. Number two, lot of journalists have seen that their bread can be buttered by siding with Hindutva. And number three, there is a very proactive effort by RSS and BJP to create social media groups. Now, see, this is the third part. Third part has entered social media. Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. WhatsApp has, and they have opened lakhs and lakhs of WhatsApp groups who spread not only fake news, who spread hatred against religious minorities and all those against hatred against those who want to stand for democratic and secular values. So I fully agree with you that language press has a very important role to play. But on one side, it is controlled by the corporate section. On the second side, many of the journalists who feel that they will prosper more personally by going towing that line. This is a so the old role of the media. What is the role of the media? It is a fourth estate of democracy. That it keeps a check on the other organs of the state. But what is happening? That now it is supporting the other organs of the state and opposing those who are criticizing the government. The role of the media is to critique the policies of the state. Why? For the sake of criticism? No. The idea is that government policies should improvise, should become better so that the state becomes better. Now, so this section of media is more gaga praising the government and criticizing the opposition to the extent that
But
those
sir, we
people
cannot.
who
But sir, we
criticize
cannot
the
leave
government
the.
policies
Sir, we cannot.
are
Sir, we cannot leave the ground for free for them. I'm just asking that,
I
sir. I do every week media analysis of the Hindi newspapers and other Urdu newspapers. It gets printed in Counter Current. So one day I get a mail from the great Anil Sadgopalan, and he said that what can we do? What, because he was really concerned about it. So what we secular forces can do?
yeah. Excellent question. I tell you, the secular forces first point which we suffer, we are very fragmented. You see, Hindu nationalist force, why it is sounding so strong, why it is so effective, because its unity begins from the RSS branch and through proliferation, through indoctrination, they are united in their strategy. People like us, all of us are heroes. All of us are doing our own work. I am doing my work, you are doing your work, Anil Sadgopal is doing his work. So, the basic platform for secular democracy, which Mahatma Gandhi created by incorporating all the people in these values, that platform is missing. I am not saying a particular political party, but our I sometimes feel that those people who are holding the secular values are much more than those people who are having communal values. I believe sometimes. But our problem is that we are all fragmented. We are all fragmented.
Sir, not only
Our
fragmented, not only
our
fragmented,
efforts
sir,
they
not only fragmented. You look at a secular party and the state. You tell me any one mouthpiece which is being printed by any secular party that has good content. It's a mouthpiece. I would not say mouthpiece. Some kind of leaning, maybe left leaning or maybe social justice leaning. I don't know. I don't know if there is any paper, Hindi paper, brought out by any at least the main forces, the main secular forces from northern India, they are paying advertisement to all those communal organizations who take their money when they are in power, and then they start attacking the secular values. I don't see any newspapers. I don't see any newspapers. It's very, I don't know whom to meet and where to complain.
See, I think this is a very serious question, very important question, and this is the crux of the question which you have asked. So I feel that media is one part of our strategy. All the secular forces, and this can't come from the political parties. Political parties are more interested in winning the elections. People like those people who are not in the political parties but are interested in preserving secularism and democracy, they have to raise a platform where the correct values are disseminated. And it is their pressure which will force political parties to change their line. That is my feeling. Because today, as you are very correctly saying, that I, of course, occasionally I see Navjivan of Congress on the net or National Herald. Not bad, but nothing very great and not very popular also.
But sir, Navjivan or National Herald, they have potential to do much better, much better, much better. If you are underperforming, then we should not celebrate it.
I agree. So question is, where we have to have a whole secular movement. It has to be in the form of a movement. And I think the fragmentation is our biggest weakness. You know, we are like this, five fingers which are scattered. And the communal forces are like this. And that's why they can hit the democratic values, they can hit the secular values. So somehow we have to introspect and feel that we come together ideologically. We may not merge our identity into each other. I am not talking of organizational unity. I am talking of programmatic unity. Program. Our program has to be coordinated with each other, because at the moment there are so many brilliant people who are working in the field of secularism. You can't believe. Tall potential, great writers, great organizers, great this thing. But again, they are standalone armies. And in RSS, you may not hear of many names who are very great writers or organizers. But as an organization, they supplement each other. Abhay Kumar is doing something very good. I will how I can help his work, how I can add on to his work. I hope you understand my point. See, I believe that the number of people believing in secularism, their talent, capability is much more, but it does not get translated into social action. While, of course, I don't know. I many times think of how Gandhi could educate the whole public into the values of secular
And even
ethos. He could,
Ambedkar, even Ambedkar, he wrote a lot, and he, yes.
yeah, I am with you. Like, if I have to take three representatives, I just still take three. There are hundreds of them I can name, but three representatives: Gandhi. Then you said very correctly said
Ambedkar.
about Ambedkar, and third Bhagat Singh. Bhagat Singh,
Yes.
by his singular act of not surrendering to the British, not apologizing to the British, and by making the statement in the court, he inspired the whole country.
Yes,
And
yes.
see, that is the whole question. That is the whole question. So today, we need to think that how secular forces can be made into a cohesion. See, Abhay, I believe, I tell you that if you see the quality of writing, quality of videos, quality of this thing coming from the secular forces, they are excellent.
Yes.
But they don't reach. They don't reach the place where they should reach. Countercurrent. Now, countercurrent, you write, I also write for that. How much? What is its reach? In a country of 130 crore people, what is its reach? So, while I heard that in Uttar Pradesh election, they formed 2 lakh WhatsApp groups. So just this one example I'm giving you. and countercurrents. All articles are brilliant. You can spend at least half a day mulling over them. Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. But question is, how is it? Where is it reaching? Where is it reaching? You read, you appreciate my article. I read, I appreciate your article. So question is, it has to be a social movement where what we are thinking, what we are talking, what we want to do is becomes a sort of a broad movement, and in this I regard myself as a failure. That whatever little I have studied, whatever little I have understood, but to reach it to the people where it matters, we are nowhere on the scene. And that's why when you said Hindi newspaper, what may be the quality of writing, you know better. But what about the reach? The reach is fantastic. So that's where I
Sir, but
think of we have to say.
I'm surprised. My concern is that if one set of newspapers, if they support Hindutva ideology, if there are a few who are at least able to provide some critique, we could say that in this democracy, diversity of opinions are existing. But when I read the content, I find it very difficult that the Hindustan Dainik, which was started by the Birla Group, so close to Mahatma Gandhi. The content of Hindustan, and when I compare the content of Dainik Jagran, sometime I don't have any choice to say which is better and which is good.
That is one, but there
And
I
this
have
same,
only one opinion, because I think there are some efforts going on. I hope something good comes, materializes. But I think each of us, in conjunction with each other, we can start something which does not require much money, and that each of us can start WhatsApp groups, pick up good things from other, pass it on to others. So I am saying, by default, I'm saying a default option. If that Dainik Jagran and Hindustan we can't bring out, that is very sure. But if we can train young people into secular values, and each of these young people not only uphold the secular values in their community, but they also start WhatsApp group, social media group, make a powerful social presence. See, after all, these trolls who are paid, this IT cell, they are after all doing some work. The number of people who are supporters of Dalits' rights, women's rights, transgender rights, that number is much more. So why can't we think of a national strategy or disseminate it? You try to promote 100 people. Okay, each of us will start once our own WhatsApp group. Pick up from here, pick up from there, and I tell you, there are valuable resources which are coming up. Very valuable resources. Have you seen Anand Patwardhan's this 16 episode serial, Vivek or Reason? Brilliant, brilliant. Then Tista Setalwad's the Sabrang newsletter. Just have a look. It is in
yes,
English,
yes,
it is in
I get
Hindi.
it every morning, sir. I get it every morning. Yes.
So now, thirdly, even modestly speaking, your articles, even I also try to put out on my YouTube something. So why can't we all make a broad chain? You are not answerable to me, I am not answerable to you, but we are answerable to secularism. We are answerable to democracy. So we form a chain where I disseminate, and that's what I practically do. I daily spend 1 hour picking up from Sabrang.in, picking up from Scroll, Wire, and all countercurrents. Whatever good is there, I try to put it forward on my Facebook page and wherever possible on WhatsApp group. So I am not doing anything great, but I think if at least 1 lakh people do it, 1 lakh people do it, I am sure we will be reaching good number of people. So that's where media-wise, I can't compete with Hindustan. I can't compete with Dainik Jagran. But at grassroots level, WhatsApp level, we need to train number of young people. And my central complaint is that so-called secular parties, even the left parties, they have not taken the issue of communalism seriously. They have not trained their cadres, workers, as to what really the values of Gandhi were there, What was it that Nehru was standing? What, see, all these, at least I am trying to focus something on this medieval history. Muslim kings, very bad. Hindu kings, great. Or he tried to see the system of kingdom. The kingdom itself is such an atrocious system. It is neither democratic, it is totally authoritarian, it is totally exploiting the peasants, it is totally against the gender justice. So rather than that, the what has come up, Hindu versus Muslim. Ambedkar very brilliantly points this out. You know, Ambedkar has also a view of history. What does he say? He says that the primary contradiction, opposite poles in Indian history are Lord Gautam Buddha's values versus Brahminism. So he summarizes the history like that. That on one side caste system and gender suppression, on the other side,
Revolution and counter revolution. Revolution and counter revolution.
exactly. So why these things are not reaching to the people? People know Aurangzeb very bad. Or he was very bad. He destroyed Vishwanath temple. But same Aurangzeb gave donation to 100 temples. Same Aurangzeb destroyed a mosque in Golconda. People don't know that. People only know Vishwanath temple destroyed by Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb very bad. Change the name of the road. So our Shivaji Maharaj, very great Hindu, etc., etc. But you know who were his closest allies? There were 12 generals, Muslim generals, who were Shivaji's main army. And this recently in Rajasthan, they did, you know, that funny thing which I tell everywhere. They tried to change the history books during the BJP regime that in the Haldi Ghati battle, Akbar lost, Rana Pratap won. So that equation they are trying to change. But uh, do people know that Akbar was not there in Haldi Ghati? And the Akbar's army was being led by Raja Man Singh, and Rana Pratap's army, in that there was a general called Hakim Khan Sur. So these things which are very simple, we have to train our young people into this simple thing. I am not a historian. I am not a historian. But this simple approach to his history, which Gandhi had, which Nehru had, we can pick it up and we can try to take it. And those young activists can also do this work of picking up things from Sabrang.in, picking up things from Anand Patwardhan, picking up things from Apurvanand, and disseminating it in. Even I tell you, we need a army of young people who can summarize articles like yours, article like Apurvanand's, article like Harshmandan, who can give the gist of that, who can do the gist of that in the lakhs of WhatsApp groups. Why we should not do that? So this planning is needed. Why I am feeling despondent is not that secular values are weak, not that secularism, people are not, people believing in secularism are less. I am feeling despondent with these simple things which are possible. Collectively, we are not doing. So I am emerging as a hero. I am doing this. He is emerging as a hero. But question is, this is not going to work. We will be disseminated in no time. That is the point. So even media, if you want
I
to
think,
counter, you have to create an army. You have a huge army of young people trained in these secular
sir,
values.
I have got a lot of questions. I think two questions have taken our 40 minutes. I don't know. And we want
Okay.
to become disciplined
I,
and wind it up. Yes. So, sir, I read your book, which recently came on Ambedkar and Hindutva. And in that book, you have argued that how BJP, you have said that is against democracy and constitution. And you gave several examples that VHP once demanded that the Dharma Shastra should be the basis for the constitutions, and even Golwalkar praised. This is your words that he heaped praises on Manu Smritis. So
Lord
so
Manu,
so
Lord
so
Manu.
Lord Manu. So the argument is that whatever is unfolding, whatever we have seen in Ayodhya, and the way even the secular parties, instead of upholding their own values, they are doing some kind of what is it, soft Hindutva. Somebody is sending brick made of gold, and somebody is competing with silver, and then somebody is saying that we will build Parshuram's temple, tallest. So my argument is that what is the strength of Hindutva ideology, that history is with us, argument is with us, rationality is with us, everything, the progressive values are with us, but they are able to reach out. And I'm telling you, I have done PhD from JNU. I'm not able to convince even a single person in my village. People in my village through WhatsApp and Facebook, they know more than me on triple talaq, on Muslims, on Sophia Mosque, or let's say any communal issue. They will teach me. So where we have gone wrong? Why there has been so much appeal for the Hindutva ideology? And two things I want to add here. I remember once in I was in Bihar. I come from Bihar, Champaran district, where Mahatma Gandhi led the movement in 1917. I asked one of my relatives that why have you voted for BJP? And what BJP has given to you? Has the party promised you to build a hospital or schools or university in your area? His argument is that BJP can give a befitting reply to Muslim. And in Hindi he said, मुसलमानों को सबक सिखा सकते हैं उनको, उसको सबक सिखा सकते हैं. The BJP can teach it. So where is the center of that base element in us? So where is it? Where is it? Why it has been so powerful? The government has failed to give relief to workers and the migrant workers, the laborers, common people during corona pandemic. And once you rake up the issue that Tablighi Jamaats are just spreading, let's say coronavirus and sabji wala, doodh wala, they will tell you, yes, Professor Puriani, what is your view on that, on Tablighi Jamaat? You are not speaking, you are defending Muslim. I get such questions, sir. I don't know you get or such questions or not. So again, to summarize, why is Hindutva ideology so appealing, so appealing?
Two or three things I can say about that. Number one is that right from 1925, when RSS was formed, it has created a series of people who are indoctrinated in their ideology. And today, I think the number of RSS pracharaks, which is their highest degree, is over 6 lakhs. 6 lakhs pracharaks. And number of Swayamsevaks goes much more, multiple times. So they have systematically cultivated these people into spread of hatred into their version of history, number one. Number two, after the decade of 1980s, the appeal of Hindutva was built up by a religiosity around Ramayana and Mahabharata. Number three, at the same time, the economic changes which were coming globally, which were coming nationally, it threw up three sections of people who were opposed to the rights of workers, Dalits and women. These three sections were petty industrialists, rich peasant, and rich professionals. They, belonging to the middle class, they were scared that Dalits are getting reservations, then women are coming front in the society. So in this, they found that the Hindutva ideology and gives them the suitable place. So basically, they are looking for an ideology which believes in status quo. Status quo are pushing back whatever rights weaker sections of society could get because of the democratic state. So this sections of society has helped one of the biggest network of pracharaks and RSS. And third is a global situation. And in global situation, if you see, after the demise of Soviet Russia, the alternative pole of power, which was promoting democracies or national movements in other countries, that pole is missing. And America resorted to bringing religion into politics for control of oil wells. And that's how Al-Qaeda was created. That's how Osama bin Laden came up. So these multiple factors, major factors are in the country, that a section of class has come up, which sees that democracy, as given in the constitution, promotes the rights of the weaker sections of society, rights, reservation of Dalits and all that. So they were looking for an alternative, and that alternative they found in RSS ideology of Hindutva, where when, for example, Lord Ram, if you talk, Lord Ram, Kabir has seen Lord Ram as a universal spirit. Gandhi has seen Lord Ram as a just and all that. But you know how Ambedkar and Periyar see Lord Ram? They see
And
Ambedkar as
Ambedkar,
just
you referred in that book,
and Periyar.
Ambedkar. Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. How Shambhuk is
Some
treated,
book.
how
Yes.
Shambhuk is treated, how Wali is treated,
The
how
upholder of the caste
Sita is
system.
exiled.
Upholder of the caste system.
Sita is exiled. So this is the basic agenda of Hindutva, that suppress the Dalits, suppress women, and use the OBC for your political agenda. So this is actually a hidden agenda of Lord Ram. What is shown of Lord Ram, which Gandhi used to promote justice and tolerance, Kabir promoted as a universal spirit. But they have, that's why Gandhi could say, Ishwar Allah Tero Naam. He didn't say like Yogi Adityanath, I will come to the temple, but I will not go to the mosque because I'm a Hindu. So, so this, I think, reach of Hindutva has multiple factors. And these multiple factors, I have tried to elaborate in some of the works. And in this book also, I have given the details of that as to how we are lagging behind. And fourth is, of course, the subjective factor, the failure of the secular parties, failure of the secular movement. I tell you, parties are secondary to the movement. At ground level, if there is a movement, parties are forced to shift. At ground level, our social movements have focused on, okay, I'll focus on forest, I'll focus on child rights, I'll focus on women's welfare. That's it. So this fragmentation and the total ideological this thing, along with demise, great fall of the left parties and opportunism of Congress. So both ways, RSS has been the beneficiary, and Hindutva ideology has percolated right down to the people of your village.
Sir, recently, I think you are all aware of the fact secularism, a chapter from class 11th book of CBSE political science has been deleted on the pretext of
Yeah.
easing the burden of the students. But I don't understand why this chapter has been removed. Something else could have been removed also. But they choose corona pandemic to withdraw many gains which the people had. We could have another debate on that. That temple is being constructed, then activists are being jailed, and then the whole range of anti-people policies has been being raised. So one assault is already there, and now a senior journalist of a very well-known newspaper, he was editor earlier. He wrote one article a few days back that Modi redefined secularism with Ram Mandir as Hindus voters were fed up with Sonia and left uh, that notion of secularism. He argued, I don't want to name this person. So the way the Hindutva forces have launching attack on secularism one by one, and plus what Sri Narendra Modi ji has done in Uttar Pradesh, and his speech where he talked about unsubstantiated and fabricated history that temple was destroyed. So should we fear that very soon the term secularism is going to be deleted? Is it the case? And if it is the case, what we can do? Or
See,
the secularism is so deep rooted that the Hindutva forces will not be able to root it out. I don't know. Sometime I fear. Sir, your comment on that.
see, one is that the chapters on secularism, chapters on citizenship, chapters on federal this thing, chapter on human rights, all these have been removed. Please see the connection. They are not just against secularism, because they think even the nationalism, Indian nationalism as it came, it did not have, Hindutva forces had no contribution to freedom movement. Muslim communalists had no contribution to the freedom movement. So that's why they are removing those chapters which come in the way of their Hindu nationalist ideology. And that's why you see secularism chapter. Along with that, they have also removed the chapter on human rights. So it is not just that it is not just a Hindu-Muslim issue. It is also issue of rights of Dalits, Adivasis, and workers. So these are very well coordinated things which they are trying to do. So of course, your fear is right that whether secularism can survive or not. They can make a fun of. They are already making fun of secularism,
But can
and
but,
the resistance
but
to
will the
secularism
secular
is not
party
very strong at the
will the
moment.
secular
Resistance to
sir
communalism is not very strong at the moment. Yeah, yeah,
apart from left, sir, apart from left, I don't see any political parties from the secular group showing what should I say, showing nerve and showing a strength to register or to at least critique, democratically critique it. Everybody is frightened. Somebody is sending Sone ka, ye Sone ka, eat. So somebody is
yeah.
sending it Chandi ka eat, and they all see it. I don't know from where that great understanding has come to them that they can only get votes when they appeal to Hindu sentiment. Very sad, sir. Very sad.
Very. I'm with you. See, Azaz Ahmad gave a brilliant description of this communalism of BJP and communalism and Congress. He said BJP is programmatically communal
Yes. Yes.
and Congress is pragmatically communal.
Yes.
So that's why you see Kamal Nath sending the silver bricks and Priyanka Gandhi sending the tweets. And left parties somehow have not taken this issue seriously. I think so. Because they have not correlated it with the issue of human rights. Because I think it is the left which has to first perceive that it is not just a Hindu-Muslim issue. It is an issue of democracy. It's an issue of preservation of democratic human rights of the weaker sections of society. Left has not realized it. That's why
So
the
would you
type
say,
of
sir?
left
Would
which
you
is
say so? Would you say that, or would you agree with the larger narrative that left forces are doing Muslim appeasement? You want to say it?
nobody has done Muslim appeasement. See, some Muslim leaders and mullahs, they have been appeased. But as far as the Muslim community is concerned, everybody has dumped them. Muslim
No, no,
community.
sir. This
Muslim,
is not my argument. This is not my argument because
I agree.
some of yes, I am also considered a person standing on the left side. We are also heard this criticism that आप तो Muslims का appeasement करते हैं. You people are doing Muslims appeasement. And one of my close friends who is a doctor in Patna, otherwise very progressive as far as that economic issues is concerned, but he has said that BJP has come to power. I don't know from where he has come to believe it, because when Hindus were being evicted from Kashmir, the left parties and the secular parties have kept mum. That is why that resurgent India is supporting Narendra Modi. So he says that I support left agenda, but we have to, people like you and me and the left organization, they must stop appeasing Muslims. I don't know. This is very ironical.
See, this eviction of Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir has been very painful, but it is a very complex situation. It is a complex thing, and it has nothing to do with the Muslims of Kashmir. It has mainly because of the Al Qaeda elements which had entered from Afghanistan, who tried to make Kashmiriyat issue into Hindu-Muslim issue. So that's why, but it has been propagated so much that nobody has done anything for Kashmiri Pandits. Now you answer me. 1998 to 2004, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was in power. From 2014, Modi is in power. Who has done what for Kashmiri Pandits? Because see, it's a more complex issue. Kashmiris are the victims of the regional politics in which Afghanistan is involved, Pakistan is involved, America is involved, etc., etc. So, but they have converted that
And
global problem.
Jagmohan, sir, Jagmohan, I think
Yeah,
Abdullah has
he
made
encouraged.
reference to it. Farooq Abdullah.
Farooq Abdullah is saying you investigate it. He says it is because of Jagmohan that Kashmiri Pandits left. Actually, what was happening?
Yes.
Kashmiri Pandits were being attacked by these militants coming from Al Qaeda stream, and that time the Kashmiri delegation of Hindus and Muslims, they went and appealed to Kashmiri Pandits that you don't leave the valley, you are a part of the valley. But Jagmohan told them that why you want to be attacked by this? I'll give you the facility. You leave Kashmir and you leave it. So that's why Farooq Abdullah is very right in accusing Jagmohan for Kashmiri Pandits exit. Actually, state should have protected them. State should have given them protection to stay there and counter the militants. Instead of that, he said, "You go away. I will take care of the militants so that I can things like that." Farooq Abdullah is very right.
Sir, our discussion cannot be complete without talking about the issue of the marginalized community, the religious minority. After the Bhumi Pujan and the way processions has been taken through the locality of the minorities, they were holding Bhagwa, that saffron flag, they were distributing, let's say, laddus, and they were also trying to provoke the minority communities. So I feel that the minority communities are very much sad. I think they are very much sad. I think they feel that somehow they have no hope from the Hindutva forces, but somehow even the secular forces are not standing with them, for whom they have continuously voted. And it is a fact that Muslims have supported the secular parties largely. So, if I put the question in this way, are you worried about the sense of gloom, or do you perceive that Muslims are somehow feeling a sense of being let down by the mainstream, by the secular parties, and how
I think you are
overcome
absolutely
that?
right. You are absolutely right. Muslim communities being feeling that they have been ditched by even the secular parties. Of course, secular parties' role was to protect their minority status and to give them physical protection whenever possible. But today, the way things have developed, what M.S. Golwalkar wrote in his 1936 book, "We Are Our Nationhood Defined," he wrote there that Muslims and Christians, if they want to live here, they will have to live as second-class citizens, and that is what is unfolding today. And no party has the guts or the courage to stand up to protect the rights of these religious minorities. What happened in Delhi recently? The anti-Muslim violence took place, and so-called AAP party, which is in power, though it does not have the police department with it, it did not do a single thing whichever was possible to protect them. Because everybody says that if you go to protect Muslims, you'll be losing Hindu votes, and Hindu votes are in majority. Though one of the AAP MPs is saying that BJP was against this violence, but when the thing was going on, they could have done something to protect the Muslim community, but obviously not. Muslim property and people, they have lost. So you have fully got the point right, that Muslim community is today in a great amount of depression, and this depression is basically because of the whole communal atmosphere which has been built up. And there are so many examples in last 6 years, last 30 years, where Muslims have been forced to chant Jai Shri Ram. Now Narendra Modi ki Jai is going to be the new one,
Sir,
because he is now in.
even a piece of news has come that an elderly person of a Muslim community has been beaten up, and that person was forced to say Jai Sri Ram, chant Jai Sri Ram, and even his teeth were broken.
That so I think it's a very bad situation. It's a very bad situation, and sometimes I do feel hopeless that whether something can be retrieved. So,
Sir,
and secular
on this
forces.
occasion, sir, on this occasion, at this critical time, I think, would you like to give some message through this program to our Muslim brothers,
See,
or we have no words?
my appeal is that still I think they should associate with the secular groups at the ground level. They have to associate with the human rights group at the ground level, As Muslims, they can't protect themselves. As Christians, they can't protect themselves. They have to be a part of the mainstream resistance movement in which other secular groups, I'm not talking of parties, secular groups which are fighting for the rights of the weaker sections of society, they have to come shoulder to shoulder with them, and that is the only way. Election is a one day affair, but life goes on for years. So, in that, to associate with these human right groups is something which the Muslim community should do in the bigger way, and they themselves should also try to learn more about the real nature of secularism in India. They have to keep Maulana Azad, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Zakir Hussain as their idols and try to walk on that path and associate with those people who are genuinely secular and voicing the concerns of all without any compromise.
Sir, in your book, you have said that Ambedkar's ideology is completely opposed to Hindutva ideology. But somehow, I think it is a fear, or maybe that several political scientists have also arguing and they are writing that the party, the Hindutva forces, you have defined it, Hindutva forces as Brahminical forces, that they have been able to attract some number of Dalits, and at the same time, even those Dalits who are incorporated and co-opted in the party, they are not given any voice. Even you could see it, that there is a little freedom to speak and to raise up, to raise the issue of the Dalit community in the BJP. The reservation is another issue. They are trying to attack reservation through various ways. The new economic policies have come. Sorry, the education policy has come, and a friend of mine had just read the draft, and he has said that the new education policy is basically a big assault on education. So sorry, on reservation. And once you attack reservation, Dalits without any land, without any resources, without much social capital, without much access to media, culture, cinema, I think you are just closing door on them. So, would you like to say something for our Dalit brothers and sisters?
See, for my Dalit brothers, I will recommend a small thing. And recently, a book of my friend has come out, Bhamar Meghvanshi. I was a car sevak. It's a real eye opener for a Dalit to be a part of RSS. See, RSS is trying to co opt them, RSS is trying to sow the policy of divide and rule, RSS is trying to influence the my Sanskritization process. So, in this, the real answer is that we go back to the Ambedkar's ideology where he says Brahminism is a real curse for the Indian society. And he says the type of Hinduism which is very prevalent is basically Brahminism. So I do feel it is a modified Brahminism. It may not be the same one as practiced 300 years ago, but it is a very sophisticated form of the same ideology which is going on today. So for my Dalit brothers, the appeal is that please remember Ambedkar. Ambedkar burns Manusmriti and is the chairman of drafting committee of Indian Constitution. While RSS people, they want to do away with the Indian Constitution and want to uphold values similar to that of Manusmriti. That's why I say these are polar opposites. So they must make their choice in favor of
Sir,
Ambedkar.
Sir, yesterday was the Indigenous Day, the World Indigenous Day, and Adivasis communities are at the margin, I think at the lowest rank of our society. Their resources, jal, jungle, jameen are exploited, and I think the political parties, irrespective of ideology, they have not stood with them. So, any message for them? Any message for them, the Adivasi brothers and sisters?
See, in Adivasi brothers and sisters, the appeal is that some efforts have been made to reach modern education, and they must also try to take jobs of this type, though of course they are not available. But through this modern education, and they should become aware of their rights. They have to form more rights organizations to defend their rights. Of course, there are some good organizations working in the Adivasi areas. They must become a part of that rather than getting co-opted by Vanvasi Kalyan Ashram, which just treats them as Vanvasi and a lower section of Hindu society.
Sir, some Adivasis, I think, from Jharkhand and other areas, they are demanding that choice should be given in census, that they should be allowed to register themselves as Sarna, and they should not be forced to register themselves with Hinduism or any of big religion. So, do you support that agenda?
Very much. I support it wholeheartedly. They must be given the choice to identify themselves as Sarna or even Adivasi category can be introduced, which they should be permitted. It must be done.
Sir, I have got a lot of questions, but we have already gone 1 hour mark. So what I'm trying to do, what we will do, I think finally, I think I will give you 3 to 4 minutes. You summarize. So, many people might have joined of late. So you summarize, you give capsule message to our friends, how to meet this challenge, how to reclaim our secular values, how to oppose those forces who are Brahminical, who are who want to do counter revolution. If you borrow words from Baba Sahib Ambedkar, sir, over to you.
Yeah, see, I think basically Hindu nationalism is not related to Hindu religion. Hindutva is a political phenomenon, communalism is a modern phenomenon. And communalism emerged from the declining sections of landlords, kings, nawabs, and all that, and it crystallized into Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, and RSS. So their basic agenda is to see that the birth-based inequality of feudal times
Ascriptive
is
inequality,
imposed
ascriptive.
in the modern context. So our job today is that multiple. Number one, we have to create a large number of friends who understand the deeper dynamics of the Indian society, who understand the deeper contradiction between Lord Gautam Buddha's values and Brahminism, who understand that it is not a Hindu-Muslim issue, it was because of British divide and rule policy. We have to take this, and then through these people we have to raise a broad national platform, and friends in this platform can raise these matters and disseminate these matters through their WhatsApp groups, through their social media, through their social interaction. And the biggest thing which we need today is all those people who are for the rights of Dalits, Adivasis, workers, women, and religious minorities. They have to put together their shoulders with each other and raise a national platform which works in conjunction despite some differences. The point of unity are two. Number one, belief in democratic values and human rights, and number two, secularism. All of those who agree with this work in unison with each other rather than criticizing each other, pulling down each other's leg. We try to combat the values which are communal, which are divisive, which are against the interest of the poorer sections of society. That's what I think is the need of our, and we must try to do that to save our country's values, democratic ethos, and secular values.
I think if I summarize, if I could dare to summarize whatever you have said, your argument has always been that we should always try to speak for the marginalized community from the religious minorities, but the big issue of labor, the big issue of worker, human rights, democracy, equality should not be missed. I think this is the core idea of Professor Ram Punyani. I think it has been a wonderful discussion, and I was very happy that you found time and you give me 1 hour your valuable time, and I want to tell you one personal experience. Yesterday, I told my friend that tomorrow I'm going to do a Facebook Live with Ram Punyani. I don't know whether he would be willing to appear or not. Although you have said yes, I said he's very busy person. He might not get the time. And then my friend reply was that I think my friend knew you better than me. He said, "Oh, to wahi jayenge." He would come easily. So Ram Punyani, a public intellectual professor, is always ready to talk and get associated with common people, those who are advocating and doing progressive politics. Thank you very much, sir. We will again invite
Thank
you,
you very much.
and we will again do another lecture. And I think I have lot of questions left. Next time we would seek answer from you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Happy to
watching
be
this
here.
Facebook Live.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This
I'll be
program
happy
ends
to
here.
meet you.